All right. Welcome to week 9. Before we get started, I'd love to hear an update. How are things going just in life in general, or with any of the topics we've discussed, or anything that's come up in in the program thus far for the two of you?
Oh, good. So trying to implement everything and add some more extra stuff to it. And
Yeah. And the intention, again, for anyone else watching the replay, is not to throw like 50 things to implement. It's hopefully, the things we did in week 1 or in week 2 you implemented, and then they become maybe habit or not, right? You take what resonates with us, what leave what behind, what doesn't, and then as you moved into things, so then even as we get into things today or this week, it's not all trying to implement at once. And again, if you're gonna, and you guys have all access to the recordings for lifetime, so if you want to go back and watch and like, yeah, I'm gonna try this again and do that. What's that, my friend?
The 12-week training plan.
Oh,
12 weeks
awesome.
to that half marathon or
12
to that 10K. So but I can do it virtually for $40.
you're gonna do the race virtually,
Yeah.
so you sit in your chair and you go, oh.
But I'll get off my butt and go outside, but then I don't have to travel and go find it and
Yeah.
go someplace I've never been and to someplace I've never walked kind of thing. So
Yeah, no, I know, I know. I'm making fun. I know what you're saying. I have to admit that, just me personally, I mean, I don't run anymore, like for on purpose. But I kind of like, this is again just me. I kind of like I wouldn't go to races necessarily. I wouldn't travel specifically for races, but I would find races if I was already traveling and going to be somewhere
yeah.
anyway. And I kind of like that. It is somewhere new. It's sometimes it sucks because you like don't know the train or the course or whatever. Sometimes it's exciting and like, oh, this is cool. I never would have seen this part of the city or state or whatever type of thing. But I'll be honest with you, like I actually like need to go be part of the crowd and all that. I can't do the, whatever the distance is on my own. Like I can, for training, but as far as like a race, like I can actually kind of like that part and the excitement and the adrenaline of the race. And like, you're
For a
just
half I
dead.
like
Yeah.
for a half or longer I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because I always start at the back. So everyone I finish in front of I passed.
Yeah.
I know it's a silly thing, but
No, it's not silly. And, for those who are going to watch the replay and are not runners, this might seem like a silly kind of train of thought, but um, I like being in the top whatever first, even if that only lasts for like a few minutes or like a kilometer or whatever. I remember I did this race. You guys might have seen me wearing this red shirt that says Turkey Trot, this something to annual Turkey Trot from Marana County, Arizona. Anyway, a small race. It was a 10K. You could do the 5, and my family did the 5, and they just like walked it or whatever. I think my youngest was getting pushed in the stroller way back when, and then it was just the same loop. So you just came through, and then you had to go do it again
yeah.
for the 10K or whatever. And I had no idea terrain. And again, Arizona, it's starting early. Temperature's not bad, and like I just died by like halfway through because it was like got too hot like too quickly. But anyway, for the first probably 2K, I was like leading that race because I got off way too fast, way too hot, adrenaline, and I don't know, and whatever. And I didn't pace myself properly and then like, yeah, I finished whatever, still probably
Fastest 10K I've ever done, they wouldn't give prizes
Oh, really?
because it was in Kuwait.
Oh,
And
okay.
they didn't want people overexerting.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
And it started at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's the only 10K I've ever done in under an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
I don't,
but a bunch of people that worked for me because I gave them half the day off went and worked it, so I got cheered the whole way, kind of thing. So it was kind of nice.
that's
No
cool.
one half,
That's
no one
cool.
half the people in the crowd.
And I promise we'll get to today's topic in a second here. I'll just share one more thing. Two things actually really quick. Yeah, I did one in Hawaii where it started. I don't know, maybe not 4 o'clock, but like super early, and it was like completely like dark out. But yeah, like probably a third of the way through, it just got so hot and so humid too, right? I couldn't
Yeah.
handle it. That killed me. But my daughter, she was the youngest. They didn't have this as a prize. They just like made it up on the fly because she was the youngest participant. So they gave her a prize for being youngest. This is my older daughter. I think she was 4, maybe 5 at the time. And she got this really cool pink turtle backpack as her prize for being the youngest competitor and the youngest completion or whatever. So that was awesome. And one time, last story, one time I did a race, also in Arizona, and I finished 4th overall and 3rd in my age group. So like all of us older guys or mid-age guys were like all in the top 4. And the prizes weren't great, but like I got a mug, like a coffee mug. Like I was like, really? Like a medal would have been better. Even a cheap medal that goes in a drawer would have been better than a coffee mug. But that being said, now that mug is just there and it's like nobody can use my mug. My mom will come over and start making tea with my mug. I'm like, that's my race mug. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, I digress. Okay, let's get to, because this is going to be a kind of content heavy learning week this week. So let me share my screen here. All right, so yes, so we are week 9 of a 10, maybe 11-week program. We'll see how we end up here. I was kind of going through it yesterday, and I'll just see. I might move some things up if we have time, but I won't push it either. If we needed to add an extra week at the end after July 4th long weekend and all that stuff, totally willing to that. So we're going to start talking about our nervous system, or controlling our automatic nervous system, and sleep will be a big component of today. So share, I guess we kind of already did that, and yeah, we'll be talking about our regulating our nervous system. So topics today: sleep, sunlight, and controlling our light exposure. So sleep, probably the biggest factor to your health, performance, and productivity overall. And I'll just say this, like, you know, and Craig, chime in too, because you may or may not have had some of this experience in the service, but like, you know, you could be like dirty, smelly, you could still perform. You could be to a degree hot or cold and still perform. You can, if you're trained, you can have not eaten for like 3 or longer days and you can still perform. But get one night of no sleep and your productivity performance just like starts to fall off a cliff, and it just compounds the longer you stay awake. And definitely you know, that afternoon brain fog or not sharpness if you don't get adequate sleep. So sleep very, very important.
When I was in the service, we literally would make sure that everyone got an extra couple hours of sleep, even if they didn't get something else done before we had inspections that were over a day long. Because the trade-off was just so much worth the cost to get everyone. So
yeah, I was gonna say, you know, I didn't even know the science and all this stuff back then, but you know, in university, I recognized in myself it was worth it for me to like go to bed on time, or at least earlier than I would, as opposed to studying longer, especially like the day before, or you know, two days before. It's like I'll perform better on the test if I have better sleep than if I cram any extra. And if I don't know by now, I'm probably not going to know it. So yeah, absolutely. So question, just with you, do you track your sleep by any measure?
I have in the past.
What did you use?
It was an app. Which one it was, I'm not real sure.
Okay, so how did it track? Like you put the phone under your pillow or under the
Right
bed?
next. You had the phone right next to you.
Right next to it. Interesting. Wondering what was the mechanism. How would it actually, what is it actually tracking? Sound? Your sleep sound?
I guess maybe your breathing and your sound, because it would tell me if I snored. It told me when I was in REM sleep, when I was in deep sleep. I don't know how accurate it is.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I don't think I could totally see making some observation based on sound, but I don't think that would be overly accurate, honestly. And we'll get into that in a moment here.
I probably dropped it out.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't even your data, Teresa. Maybe it was actually Craig's. Who knows?
Oh, could be.
So
I don't.
sleep is all about our quality, not our quantity. One person's 6 hours can be more restorative and stress reducing than another person's 9 hours. It's about time getting quality sleep, not the time in bed. Sleep is very individualized. As I mentioned, some people only need 6 hours, some people need 8 or 9 hours. Kids and adolescents, need more sleep than adults just because they're developing. When you hear this, like we need to get 8 hours of sleep, that's really just a ballpark because no one has actually ever done that study. To actually do a proper sleep study, I don't know if everyone's ever been to a sleep lab for sleep apnea or something like that, but to do a proper sleep study with a number, that would be impossible task to do. It takes so long, because to get any sort of real data with like 1,000 people, so that study's actually never been done. So it's kind of just a ballpark figure that's someone and determined and just kind of carried on through, the lexicon of society. Let me ask the question this: have you ever woken up where you've been in bed for 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever the case is for you, and you wake up and you're less like, gosh, I'm exhausted. You like literally just woke up and you already feel like exhausted
Most every day.
most every day. Okay, so but I mean, you've got some things going on, right, with some health stuff, which can totally impact that for sure. What I guess I should have prefaced is like, if we're not suffering with something, we don't have a cold, flu, whatever else might be going on, and many people, I mean, Teresa, I see you shaking your head. Yes, many people do, even they otherwise are seemingly healthy, because again, it's about that quality of sleep and not how long we were in bed. So there's usually, I'm going to super simplify this thing. It can get really technical with all these sub stages and everything. I'm just going to go high level here. There's 4 sleep stages. So 1, 2, 3, and REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. These stages progress cyclically from 1 through to REM, and then it begins again at stage 1. A complete sleep cycle takes, again, be person dependent, can take anywhere from 90 to 110 minutes, plus or minus. There can be a little bit of variance on each side, with each stage lasting anywhere from as short as 5 minutes to sometimes upwards of 20 or 25 minutes. The first sleep cycles each night have relatively short REM sleeps and longer periods of deep sleep, but later in the night, our REM periods lengthen and our deep sleep time decreases. Now, that's important to keep note of. I'm just going to share. I'll share it now, because we need both. We need both restorative. So deep sleep is restorative for our bodies, our physically, and REM sleep is more restorative for our memory, for our mind, memory consolidation, etc. So we do need both, and we need them pretty much in equal amounts. So if we're going to bed, so assuming you're the typical person, right? And again, there's sort of that bell curve. We always have these kind of outliers. But if you're like the average person, typical person, and you're going to bed later than you should, you're robbing yourself of deep sleep. Or on the flip side, if you are getting up earlier than you need to, or maybe there's some other things going on that wakes you up in the 2, 3 in the morning and you have a hard time getting back to sleep, and maybe you do, but then it's not that great of sleep, whatever, then you're robbing yourself of REM sleep. So depending where you fall, you're robbing your body of physically recovering or mentally recovering. So both deep and REM sleep are important that we get. So I want to share this here, and I don't know why I didn't grab it. So this is my sleep. So I use the Oura Ring. So going back to your point, Teresa, of how accurate. And there's lots of different devices, and there's actually been some really good studies on testing some of the top devices against each other as far as accuracy. And the latest, there's not a one best. Some trackers are better on a couple metrics and some are better on the other couple, so it kind of depends what you're looking for. But generally speaking, there's a couple that are right at the top, sort of like, let's call it the top 3, maybe top 4. And the Oura Ring, which I should be wearing, but I'm not wearing at the moment, is the one I use. And this is this chart here is my actual sleep data from a month period here. Sorry, this is a week's worth of my sleep data from way back when my first month of testing. So you can see here, I'll just really quickly go through this. An average time of bed time in bed of 7 hours and 35 minutes. My sleep efficiency was 92%, which means that of that 7 hours and 35 minutes, I really only got 6 hours and 56 minutes of actual sleep. So 39 minutes, or let's round to 40 minutes of being awake and not even realizing that I was awake. Now, sometimes we know, we get up, we go to the bathroom, we get a leg cramp, we roll over to grab a sip of water, we're conscious of this. This is me like being awake and not even, or being sleep disturbed and not even realizing it. So my deep sleep here was 1 hour and 15 minutes. And again, deep sleep is restorative for our body and our physical recovery. My REM sleep was 1 hour and 32 minutes. Again, beneficial for your brain and mental recovery. And the last graph you can see here is my HRV, and it was 65 milliseconds, which in this case is actually pretty low for me. So HRV stands for heart rate variability. Do you guys know what heart rate variability is? Should I explain? Yeah, okay. So a healthy heart beats, a healthy heartbeat contains healthy irregularities. So even if your heart rate is, say, 60 beats per minute, that doesn't mean that your heart beats once every second like a clock would. It's irregular, right? So it could be, this variation could be, you know, like 0.85 of a seconds to 1.35 and succeeding beats. It's all over the place. But this variability is actually what we want. So we want a higher heart rate variability. The higher the number, the better is. And our heart rate variability is essentially a measure of our automatic nervous system. And our automatic nervous system contains two important systems in our body, including our heart and respiration and our digestion. So the automatic nervous system has our parasympathetic, which we've probably heard before, our rest and digest, right, our recovery, and our sympathetic, or our fight and flight response. So heart rate variability is an indicator of how both of these branches, our rest and digest, our fight and flight, are working with each other, and particularly our parasympathetic. So blah, 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 a lot of scientific mumbo jumbo there. Basically, the higher our heart rate variability, the more rested we are, the less stress our body's under. So we want scores in the 80s, 90s, and over 100. So again, 65 in this time, in this week period was actually low for me. Yeah. Any questions on that or tracking in general? So the Whoop. So in the most recent study I've seen, that kind of tried to compare all the top ones. Oura Ring, which is what this data is from, which is a ring, obviously. Whoop, which is a bracelet. It's not a watch, but it's like a wristband. And then the Apple Watch actually comes up pretty high as well. So for the more kind of consumery, widely adopted, which probably the Apple Watch is, it ranks the highest, higher than Garmin watches or some of the others, at least in that latest research that I've seen. So you know, we could do a whole course just on sleep, and of course we're obviously just hitting the highlights here, just some actionable steps for everyone, but really your preparation for your sleep tonight began when you woke up this morning. So what we want to do is, if possible, we want to try and get outside and get, you know, sunlight exposure in the first, you know, 15 to 20 minutes of the sunrise. You know, if possible, no sunglasses. You know, get your skin exposed. You know, there's no need for sunscreen or anything like that early in the morning, regardless of where you're at, even if you're at the equator. Obviously, it's going to depend where you live, the latitude, longitude. Which one's which, Craig? Latitude is up and down, right?
Long is this way.
Oh, longitude. Okay. Depending on your longitude. Thank you. I always get that one mixed up. So again, I live up here in Canada. So sometimes that's hard to do because in the summertime, the sun's already up, like way before I even get up, right? Before I want to get up. And in the wintertime, it's like well into mid-morning before the sun comes out, right, in the depth. So sometimes it's hard to get that sunlight exposure, but try and do your best. And again, for those of us in colder climates or higher longitudes, I guess, or lower, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it, whenever we can, even if it's cold out, try and get out and get some sunlight into your eyes, maybe a little bit on your face exposure if everything else is covered up because it's freezing out. As we've been talking the last couple of weeks, we want to try and incorporate movement into our day. And again, you don't necessarily need to crush a workout every day, but get some low-level movement that we've been talking about. All these things, walking the dog, playing with the kids, running errands, whatever the case may be. We want to get some movement in every day. Again, whatever that looks like for you, we talked about that a number of weeks ago. You want to eat a nutritious, light meal for supper. Even if it's not the best choices for you as far as inflammation and allergies or anything that one might have, you do want to try and have a lighter meal, or at least be finished your meal about 3 hours before bedtime. Your body gets to work right away digesting your food into energy, and it needs time to do its work. So your body cannot rest and repair if it's busy digesting that big ribeye steak or ribs or super cheesy lasagna or whatever the case may be. Now, I totally get it with people's different lifestyles and working late or meetings or Zoom calls and zipping kids, grandkids around, whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's hard. So, again, when we don't have the chance to eat when we want to, that 3 hour or so window, I'd say at least 2.5, 3 hours, preferably before bed, then go for something a little bit lighter that day, a salad or some lean protein or whatever, something easier to digest. And you guys have questions, just stop me at any time. I'm just going to go because it's, again, a bit of stuff here. So we definitely want to cut our caffeine or other stimulants by midday. So even if you're a fast caffeine metabolizer, and I think I've shared this before, you can be tested for that. I'm a very slow caffeine metabolizer. You should probably cut it off no later than 2 p.m. Again, I'll just use myself as an example. I need to be, if I don't want to affect my sleep, I need to cut myself off by 10 a.m. or even if I have 3 cups and I'm done all 3 cups by 9 o'clock, it still affects my sleep because the half cycle of caffeine, of how I metabolize caffeine, is so slow that just having that extra caffeine, even if it's early, just means I still have too much in my system later on in the day by the time I want to go to bed. And I showed that chart a few moments ago about my tracking using the Oura Ring. Again, it's probably right up there for the top. And again, I think when we were talking about those top 3, is like, do you want to watch? There's pluses and minuses. Do you want just a wristband that is not a watch and is not getting using for continuous data, or do you want a ring? So it just sort of depends what fits in our lifestyle and what our goals are. But I prefer the Oura Ring myself. And just as a sidebar, I'm waiting, and there's a new company that's come out with a ring for tracking and some other variables as well, kind of next gen. So I early backer on that. I'm just waiting for my ring to come any week now. So I'll probably do some posts or some articles or something on that when I get it. And lastly, we want to have a consistent wake time and bedtime. So typically, usually because of work commitments or kids going to school or the case may be, we're pretty consistent with our wake up time for most people, but generally our bedtime can usually vary quite a bit. And certainly it can varies on the weekends for many people, myself included. Usually the going to bed can vary quite a bit, but the wake up time, again, just use myself as an example, I still stick to only sleeping in for 1 hour later. So I get up at 5 or 5:15 during the week, and on the weekends it's still 6. Regardless of what time I went to bed, it's still 6 o'clock. I'm trying to be consistent there. And really, we shouldn't vary more than an hour. That's kind of what they've found to be sort of an okay. You're not going to throw your circadian rhythm all out of whack and your whole day out of whack and affect your next night's sleep and that sort of thing. If you can stick within that 1 hour of your normal, it's when we go beyond that is when it kind of throws us all off kilter, if you will. So there's a great book here by Dr. Michael Breus, also known as the Sleep Doctor. It's called The Power of When, and it talks about various sleep types. Now, some people are just wired to be, early birds or night owls. He uses different terminology in the book, but essentially you get the idea. In kind of our post-industrialized world, where many of us are, having to go to uh, work for other people in jobs. That's to be the good worker bees. We tend to have sort of I think companies are getting better as far as a little bit of flexibility, but for the most part, we have to start our jobs at this time and end it at this time. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is if we have the choice, whether we work for ourselves or we have some flexibility with our supervisors, or we're maybe in a position of decision making in our businesses, just to be aware, and we might actually do ourselves and our staff or our teams better service to them by allowing them to have flexibility of when they start and end their day based on their sleep chronotype. So if somebody's a complete night owl and you're asking them to show up for a 8 o'clock meeting, are you getting the best out of them? Probably not. If you have people on your team like this or that you regularly interact with, it might be better to have a later meeting, even though that might not be best for you, but so you get best out of them. And so I think you guys get what I'm saying here. So anyway, at this link here, thepowerofwhenquiz.com, it's a free quiz. You can just see what your sleep type is. Chances are you already know. You know if you're an early bird, or again, he uses different terminology, but interesting thing to maybe do with your family members, people you interact with, or if you're working teams, just to have a sense of like, oh, okay, Bob is they call a wolf in his case, or the night owl, who's does his best work between midnight and 4. Well, maybe that doesn't work in our situation, but maybe we can provide a little bit more flexibility. Maybe we shouldn't have meetings at 8 a.m. for Bob, because Bob never contributes. He's quiet all the time because it's totally off his thing. Maybe if we have a late afternoon one when Bob's just getting into his prime, maybe that'd be better. So just more of an awareness thing in that sense. All right. Before I get into sleep environment, I feel like I need to do I feel like I've been talking. I need a break from my voice for a second. So maybe any questions of anything thus far, Craig or Teresa?
But taking a nap, is it good for you, or is it just throw your sleep REM and deep sleep completely
That's a
out?
great question. And there's so much, there honestly is like conflicting literature out there on that. Here's my take on it. This is going to be a little bit Deepak centric. Typically, if you're sleeping properly with some of this stuff I've already mentioned and some of the sleep environment stuff I'm about to go to, you really shouldn't need a nap. Now, if there's circumstances where maybe it's travel, or it was your daughter's wedding, you stayed up extra late, but for some reason you had to get up because you had to get out of the hotel, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, you know what, I just didn't get enough. Like, I'm going to have a nap, and get a little bit of a catch up. That's totally fine. You hear it a lot of times like, oh, older people, and you can define what older means, it's good for them to have a nap type of thing. Well, I think that's just an underlying issue of why are they not sleeping properly at night? Is it medical issues? Is it, some other sort of anxiety or mental type of thing? And that's not confined to just older people. That could be anybody. So I really like to, what's the root cause? Using myself as an example, I don't nap at all. The only time, no, I shouldn't say at all. I rarely nap, and really the only time I do is typically in the summertime when we're out on the lake, at the lake, or on vacation per se. One, there's like less responsibilities, but those are actually the times when like actually physically I do a lot more because I have no other stuff. I don't have to get back to work. I don't have to jump on a client call. I'm like off. I'm not off the grid, but I'm like off. So I do harder workouts. I do my paddle boarding, which I love to do. Probably playing at the park with the kids and goofing around. I'm actually doing more physical. So I actually feel like I need, and because we usually travel with other people, they're actually keeping me up a little bit later. As best as I try and do all the stuff I'm about to talk about in the next section here, as best I try and do that when there's just a lot of noise, and people keep you up longer than you wanted to, then I'm actually and I'm still keeping that consistent wake time, or relatively consistent. I'm actually getting a bit short. So probably like once let's call it a long weekend, like 4 days away, probably 1 or 2 of those days I'll actually have a nap, but I'm actually trying to just recover from both physical and probably a little bit on the mental side because I got less sleep. So that's where I'll nap. So I think that makes sense. But if someone has to consistently nap at whatever time, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, just to make it through the rest of the day, I think there's an underlying issue that needs to be addressed. Now, is that a temporary bandage? Absolutely. If that's what you need to do, great. But I don't think you can leave the likely underlying issue unaddressed. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And certainly if you're sick or something, not only would I sleep in, I would totally like take a nap because my body needs recovery. So if you're in a recovery mode, like I explained, from a physical point of view, but also from like overcoming some sort of sickness or cold or flu or something like that. Um, um, 3 summers ago now, I never tested, so I don't know. I probably had COVID for like 2 days, and I attribute it only lasting 2 days because one, I rested, which I'll get to in a second. Plus, I'm relatively healthy. I was on a anyway, it doesn't matter why I got COVID or why I believe I got COVID. But I was recovered in 2 days, primarily because I'm relatively healthy, and I just needed to give my body a chance to actually rest. And I slept like extra slept for like 2 days, not like 2 days straight. Like I wasn't like out for 48 hours or anything like that. I just like went to bed a little bit earlier, slept in a bit longer, and took like some extra long naps. And in 2 days I was recovered. So that's all my body needed was actually like take a rest and take a break. So, so giving some examples, I think that makes sense for a nap. But if we're doing it consistently, there's probably underlying issues. And to your point of like, does it affect our REM and deep sleep? If we're not getting those that time in the evening, we're not going to be getting the REM sleep and the deep sleep we want. And are we going to get that when we're having our nap? It depends how long your nap is. If you're having let's just say an hour nap for sake, or even 90-minute nap in the middle of the day, you're almost certainly not getting REM sleep. You might be getting some deep sleep if you can get into it, right? The lights is on, or the sun is out. There's some other ambient noises, whatever. Yeah, we're sleeping, but is it a good quality sleep? Is it the same as nighttime? I don't know. But maybe you probably could stimulate like a perfect sleep environment in the afternoon, which we'll get to in a second here. But so you probably could begin some deep sleep, but I probably highly unlikely you begin any REM sleep because you just haven't had that cycle, right? You have to go through. No, let me rephrase. It's not that you wouldn't get any REM sleep. You wouldn't get enough REM sleep to make a difference. Because again, what I said earlier, those first cycles of the night, way more deep sleep, very little REM sleep. And then as we get into hour 3, 4, 5, 6 of our sleep, it flips and you get way more little deep sleep and way more REM sleep. So if you're only getting an hour or 90 minutes in the afternoon, you're probably getting very little REM sleep to make any difference. So does that answer feel complete for you, your question? More than complete?
I love a half hour.
Yeah. Do you guys nap?
I love a nap. 30 minutes.
30
Lay
minutes?
down, relax, put everything aside, clear my head, get back up, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
I probably sleep 15 minutes, but just
yeah. And I think well, it goes a little bit beyond what we're going to talk about today and next week about all the ways you can really hack your sleep. We're going to talk about environment here in a second, and you can get really crazy with lots of tools and things to really optimize. Where you're like your half hour or 45-minute power nap is like could be the equivalent of a 4-hour, 6-hour like sleeping session, like that, a little bit beyond here. But again, it's like if that's what your body needs, then that's great. Let's take it. You give your body what it needs, but why? To use your words, Craig, you love a nap, and you love it because it feels great and you feel refreshed afterwards. But then the question is like, why don't you feel refreshed? Like, why are you not getting enough at night that you even need it? Right. So you use the tools you have at your disposal, which is a nap, but there's probably something there as well.
Probably because my schedule is not consistent.
Yeah. So, thank you. You brought up a good point. And it's going beyond the original question, but like, yeah, if you have inconsistent schedule or somebody who works the late shift, or people that have like really crazy, like somebody, there's probably, I don't know. I'm sure there's been studies. I don't know them off the top of my head. There's probably some correlation to health challenges with people who are like first responders or people who do that kind of off shift work where it's like 1 week you're like working days and then you have 3 days off and then you're working nights another way. It's so inconsistent. It would be one thing where you could get yourself. So it's like, I only work nights. And that's challenging in itself because when you're the minority of the population counter to what everyone else does, but at least you can get into a rhythm. But when it's like nights 1 week, days another week, then a couple of days off, you can do whatever the heck you want. And then like, but that's I think the most challenging. I think there's a reason you see earlier conditions come up with firemen, police people, EMT, and nurses, a whole host of other type of jobs as well. So that makes sense to your point, Craig, of like inconsistent schedule that is affecting your overall sleep. Well, then the nap is so refreshing.
Old life, I didn't have a sleep schedule.
Sorry, say that again.
When I said military, I didn't have a sleep schedule.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I mean, though I listed those occupations, military would probably fit in there as well, right? And I mean, if you go and not to go down this rabbit hole, but if you're some elite frontline unit or something like that, like they're training you on how to go on like little sleep and everything. So you can be sleep deprived and still perform when the shit hits the fan and whatever, right? So like,
never stand when you can sit, never sit when you can lay down, never be awake when you can be asleep. Just,
yeah. So I mean,
when you're on alert, you live that way.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go back to the. All right, so let's talk about our sleep environment. Oops. All right, so studies have shown that it's easier to fall asleep and have a better quality of restorative sleep when we are slightly cooler. Now, it is virtually impossible to fall asleep or stay asleep if our hands and our feet are cold. But if we can keep those warm, we can get away with having, our bedroom be a few degrees cooler and keep our core and even our head cooler. Now, everyone's going to have their own set point, and it's probably different. It's quite often different between partners. Certainly is between me and my wife. My wife needs like 3 blankets, and it depends on time of year, of course, but like she layered up, and I'm like have the sheet or nothing sometimes. So we definitely have different set points, the two of us, but typically it ranges somewhere between 65 and 72 degrees, or 18 and 22 Fahrenheit, or 18 to 22 degrees Celsius is typically for most people where that's a good set point to have your room temperature when you're sleeping. Eliminating light in your room is very important. This could mean, blackout curtains, closing doors to other rooms that may have windows, even covering displays or lights on your alarm panel or your alarm clock, et cetera, et cetera. Before I get to that, so darkness, or having complete darkness while we sleep, stimulates something called AMPK. I'll give you the scientific term, 5-adenosine monophosphate activate protein kinase. It's an enzyme that optimizes energy efficiency and stimulating of the recycling of cells. So again, if you go back to like week 2 and 3, we kind of talked about that cleanup of our cellular system, and that sort of thing. That's helped when we're sleeping, obviously, generally, but also in complete darkness or as much as possible. You can use an eye mask. I use one even when I'm at home, and certainly it's a must-have when I travel, for sure. Again, that's just me. If you're a light sleeper, certainly can use earplugs. Definitely, again, a must if you travel. I only used to wear them when I used to travel, and then it just got so comfy. You travel for an extended period of time, blocking all the noise, including my like wife breathing or whatever. And then I was like, get home, and like, why is she so noisy? It's like, oh, I got used to not listening to her. So I was like, so now I wear my earplugs every day. So I just have 3 or 4 pairs. There's always one packed in a backpack. So if in case I forget my main pair, there's always something. So again, I remember one time we were traveling and we got the room next to the elevator, and it had like very loud, like every time it came to the floor, it was like bing, like it was so thin walls, little gap under the door. Like, and I remember, yes, I think our oldest was a baby, like I think a year or something, and like I think like it kept me up all night. But then I think it woke her up one time, and then my oldest was the type who like she'd have to be in constant motion to fall asleep. So it's like literally we put her in her stroller and we paced back and forth, one of us in the room for like 45 minutes until she like, there was enough motion, she fell back asleep. So we could try to go sleep. Anyway, long way of saying is if I have the choice, I always ask for my room away from the elevator now. Funny story, sidebar. This last trip I took to Phoenix, I asked for that. I didn't know what the resort was like. I assumed it was kind of more your traditional hotel, like, multiple floors up and, like tons of rooms per floor. So I asked away from the elevator before I even got there. And when I got there, it was more of a resort open style type of thing. Every room opened out to the outside. So I was away from the elevator, but they put me right by the pool, which was great if I was going to use the pool. But at 10:30 at night, when kids are still screaming and splashing in the pool, that was kind of like, oh, it kind of defeated the purpose of being away from the elevator. But anyway, you live and learn. Back to where was I at here? Oh, you can also use, to block sounds. You could use a white noise machine or, even an app on your phone, that sort of thing. That being said, devices and electronics in your bedroom are actually very terrible for your sleep. Especially if they are, and we get to talking about environmental factors, we're going to talk a little about EMFs. But if we're going to have our phone for an alarm or something, like that's fine. But have an airplane mode. Don't be having, data transmission, Bluetooth, what have you, all the time. We'll talk more about that later on. Don't watch TV in bed. I recommend not even having a TV in your bed or in your kids' rooms. And even if you're going to be using blue light blocking glasses, which we'll talk about in a minute here. But I certainly wouldn't recommend having any. Try to eliminate electronics. We're gonna have a sleep sanctuary. Is really what we're trying to get to. Many people are exposed to light even while we're sleeping, and when we're exposed to light, our hormones and metabolism shift to something called mTOR, which leads to growth and anabolism. And again, when we're trying to build lean muscle mass, burn calories, et cetera, we want this, but if we also need a break from it. So if it's in excess and our bodies always is in this phase, it can lead to things like diseases and shortened lifespan, et cetera. So we need that balance. So again, we want to try and sleep as best we can in cool, dark, essentially, literally the proverbial cave from our ancestors from 100,000 years ago, cool and dark. If you are going to have a TV in your room, or maybe you're traveling or something, here's a little bit of a travel hack. All those little display lights, especially if you go to a hotel, like you turn off everything, and it's like a million little green and red lights everywhere. You can travel like a roll of black electrical tape and cover those all up if you're sensitive. Some people, it's not a big deal, especially if you have eye mask, it's less problematic. But these are just little things we can do, just kind of black out a room as much as possible. And then what I like to call the 1 hour sanity. Again, try and get off your devices, get off the TV, etc. for an hour or as best as possible before bed. We want to cut the blue light. We don't need to be stimulating our mind with our Facebook feed or the news and the doomsday scrolling or whatever. Or even maybe it's the excitement of like some suspense thriller or the big game of whatever, pick your sport, blah blah blah. Right? We want to start to wind our mind and our body down. So read a book, talk with your partner, whatever meditate, journal, whatever the case may be, if possible. And I understand I'm not perfect at this myself, and sometimes it's challenging in what we have going on in our lives. I was going to say, if you are going to use your phone later in the day, more so in the winter time, when it's already it's gotten dark much earlier, and now we're using more artificial light, or your smart TV, put it in dark mode. So nowadays it's super simple. When I started talking about this 8 years ago, it was kind of more of a process. Now it's super simple to put any of your apps, your device, everything in dark mode. So you're cutting the blue light out of it, or and it's just easier to read on and easier on your eyes. And you certainly, I would suggest this for even anytime use, but you can install Iris Tech software on your monitors, easier on a computer than on your like your home TV, but to reduce the flicker rate. So your conventional monitors are flickering at, I don't know how many flickers per second. We can't perceive it. Our brain can't perceive it visually. Like we can't contextualize it. It doesn't look like it's flickering, but our parts of our brain actually process it. So we don't recognize it with our eyes. I mean, I'm not saying this properly. We obviously see it through our eyes, but our conscious part of our brain is our amygdala is not recognizing that our screen is flickering, but other parts of our brain are, and it's very stressful. If you could actually visualize flickering light for like your whole day or however long you're in front of a computer or TV, you think it'd be very stressful. So there's part of our brain that is very stressed out about that. So I mean, that's an extra step one can take. You can install that on there. I feel like this is a good place to take another break for questions before I wrap us up for today.
I usually have the phone in the bedroom because I use the app, the sound app at night for noise.
Now the question is,
And play games.
I don't play games when I'm trying to go to sleep. In the bed I do, but then I put it down.
oh my gosh. Okay, you're gonna have to watch the replay of that look he just gave you, Teresa.
He's good at the wife look. He's good at it.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. Like many things, if you can download it and then have it play, so it's on your phone, but it's not like your phone's not like if you can play the sounds without your phone actually being on per se, so it's completely off, it's in sleep mode, not even sleep mode, it's like off. There's no data, like you cannot actually receive a call or anything like that, and it's just on the phone and just the phone's operating system is working to it, then still not the best, but I mean you do what you got to do, right? Like, and I use my phone occasionally for an alarm because my old I used to have an old Garmin that had like an alarm thing, and the band broke, and Garmin suck, and I'll never buy a Garmin again because their bands are like the weakest point. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it's still a good alarm. So I have this like just the end bit of my old Garmin. I actually use that as my alarm. But sometimes it runs out of juice, and I don't have it charged up, so I have to use my phone. But I turn it all off, and I just have the alarm going, and you don't need to use any power. Sorry, not power. You don't have to use any data, or it doesn't need a signal to use the alarm. So if that's the case for your white noise, then go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. But again, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're all grown-ups, but playing Candy Crush or whatever your favorite game is, like right before you fall asleep, again, probably not the best for your sleep quality. But yeah, great question, and great look, Craig, as well. I might watch the replay myself just to see that look again. I'm just joking. All right, let's bring it all home here. All right. So closely related to sleep is light and light quality. So I kind of teased it again. Blue light or artificial light is extremely new in the history of mankind. What is it like? I guess I've been using candles for a long time, but like the light bulb, what, 150 years less, right? Something like that. Somebody fact check this. Somewhere in that ballpark, right? Man is meant to rise and rest with the sun. The advent of artificial light allowed us to extend our working hours into the evening by spiking our cortisol levels, which allowed for a brief improvement of productivity and focus, followed by a rapid decline in cognitive function. So again, depending on our context, if we're in a leadership position or leading others, or in our, again, I got one teenager and a budding teenager along the way, and their exposure to light, even for myself, like I'm almost concerned with that. If again, from a health point of view, cognitive point of view, that sort of thing. So natural sunlight coming into our eyes regulates our hypothalamus, which regulates and controls our automatic nervous system, energy balance, fluid balance, heat regulation, activity and sleep, circulation, maturation, reproduction, and emotional balance. So natural sunlight is very important. Well, not there yet. Far infrared, which you get part of the sun spectrum, or from an infrared sauna, like I have, can really enhance the hydrating effects of water itself in the body, and actually kind of give you a bunch of energy, almost charge you up like a battery. And we do want to protect our eyes from artificial and harmful blue light, which again is going to typically come off of our screens during the day as much as possible, and certainly at night, because again, we need to send the signal to our body, like just like the sun setting, right? We're getting the spectrum of the sun setting. It goes from a full spectrum more. I mean, there's still blues and greens and purples in the setting sun, but there's more reds, oranges, and yellows. So we want to start to simulate that as best as possible by trying to cut out, when we're having artificial lights, cut out as much blue light as possible to really help kind of set that tone as if it were more natural. So benefits of reducing blue light: better sleep quality, better sleep latency, or how quickly you fall asleep, reduce macular degeneration. I'll just go to sidebar for a second. Probably, gosh, 6-7 years ago, I've been doing a lot of this research, hearing a lot of people talk about it, wondering if blue light blocking glasses was for me. I went to go talk to my optometrist at my next appointment, brought this up, and she's like, "Oh yeah, like everyone here in the shop wears blue light blocking glasses at some point." So she's like, "I'm wearing contacts right now, but as soon as I get home, I put my blue light blocking glasses on." And I'm like, "Well, do you have any that I could see? Like, how do they actually work?" And she's like, "Well, hold on." So she went to one of the technicians out front, grabbed their literal pair of glasses off their face. We came back into her office. She turned off the light. She got a blue light pen, shone the light, and then put the glasses underneath. And I could see how much it cut the blue light going. Didn't eliminate it completely going through, but it totally cut it down by, I don't know, 80-90%. That was my trigger point. It was, one, my optometrist said like she uses them, and yeah, that's a good idea. And two, everyone who works at the optometry store all has blue light blocking glasses, like even the front retail people. Okay, this is important. So I actually asked her, like, why do you not hear this? She's like, yeah, people are so slow to change and whatever. And sometimes it's not even that expensive, depending on the pair. You're still going to pay. The frames are still going to be your most expensive part of buying new glasses. Adding blue light protection to it is only an extra, like, depends, let's call it maybe $50. She's like, but it's just that extra for a lot of people. Just like they haven't got traction with it, at least not yet. So that's why you don't see them promoting blue light blocking glasses. Add blue light blocking glasses. It's probably a PR thing. Everyone understands UV. Get your UV, cut your UV. But anyway, I digress for the sidebar. So I wear blue light blocking glasses all the time. These are clear, but they're blue light blocking glasses. Craig, you've seen me many times, probably wearing my yellow ones. I have red ones as well. And again, I transition. The later it is or the darker it is, I go wear the red ones. It does cut a lot of light, so it is harder to see, I'll admit. What I will say is, going back to early morning when I take my dog out for a walk, because these are my default pair that I'm wearing all the time, we do want to get that natural sunlight, like I mentioned earlier. So when I go in for that first morning walk with my dog, whatever, regardless if it's winter or summertime, I'm like literally handing them down, and I am trying to see over my glasses. I want to make sure I'm not going to get chased by a moose, which I've been known to do, or whatever. But I'm trying to get like natural sunlight coming, even though I'm wearing my blue light blocking glasses. I'm trying to get natural sunlight on my face and in my eyes, especially first thing in the morning. So that's kind of how I do it, because I don't want to like be taking off pairs. Like, here's my wake up to 9 o'clock pair that has no blue light protection. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. So that's kind of my way around that. Just getting back to it, also reduces inflammation, enhances kidney and thyroid function, balances your blood sugar, even losing weight. So again, it's stressful. Blue light is stressful. It's relatively new in the history of mankind, and we haven't adapted for it. So again, are any of these things that we've been talking about through the course, inflammation, the wrong oils, not exercise, are these things going to like kill you tomorrow? No, but it's all the little paper cuts all the long way from multiple sources that end up getting you and making you unhealthy or not having what you want. Yeah, I already said that part. Yeah, so risks of negative excess blue light, negative to endocrine system, on cellular function, cataracts, blindness, macular degeneration. Oh yeah, so that's why I brought up the story of my eye doctor. So I said, this is what I'm hearing, and she said, she confirmed that. She said they are seeing, with the advent of not so much TV. TV's been around for a long time, but like with screens and personal, not only phones, but like even the little handheld video games, the Nintendo Switches and whatever is the predecessor to that, they're actually seeing. I'm gonna go so you guys see it. For macular degeneration, they're like seeing like what's looking to appear hockey stick instances of macular
Wow.
degeneration at younger and younger ages. So I was like, well, shit, I don't want that. So I'm definitely, I was already like leaning because I like from the health optimization point of view, I was already leaning in, and she just confirmed this. Like, yeah, I'm all in on blue light blocking glasses. I don't want macular degeneration or anything else. Anyway, mitochondrial dysfunction. Remember back to week 2 or 3, we talked about our mitochondria. We have mitochondria in almost every cell in our body. Very heavy concentration in our heart, our eyes, and then our sexual organs, men or women, depending on what we're talking about. Cancer, heart disease, and of course, disrupted sleep as well. I talked about flicker earlier, headaches, brain fog, lack of focus, even eyesight damage. So some quick tips here as best as possible, sleep with the sun. Totally get it. That's very difficult to do depending on time and year with our modern lifestyles, but as best as we can. So that's why people sleep so great when they're camping. Got dark out. We'll start a fire. That's natural. That red light, amber, orange light from the fire is natural. And then you go to sleep under the stars. That's why people sleep so well when they camp. Blue light blocking glasses, I mentioned. I would again suggest don't wear sunglasses in the morning. Try and get some natural sun in your eyes, on your face. But certainly cars these days with the halogen lamps, they're like crazy. What's the term? Anyway, the illumination, I guess. I forget the unit of measurement.
Lumens.
Lumens, yeah, thanks. It's so bright now with these halogen car lamps, right? Like I literally can't drive anymore at night. It's like blinding. And it's not, I'm like, God, I wish that guy would put his high beams off. What is he doing driving with his high beams on? Oh, that's not his high beams. That's just how cars are now. So I literally, I wear my blue light blocking all the time anyway. But if I know I'm going to be driving at night, like I know I'm going out, I know it's going to be dark when I come, I will actually bring my yellow pair, my red pair, or in the worst case, just bring your sunglasses and wear. I know it's going to block out a lot. And your peripherals is going to be very poor driving at night, but at least the head-on light cars coming to, like you're going to cut that down way down. So there's trade-offs to that, obviously. And one last thing is you can actually buy red, orange, or yellow they're getting harder to find incandescent bulbs and install them. And in our household, all 4 of us have side lamps on our side tables. And that's the only place we have them. So when we go to bed, preparing for bed, I stumble in first in the dark and turn on my red lamp. And then my wife will come and turn. So we don't turn on the big overhead light with, whatever. And then some people do that just in the bathroom. It's easier if you have like dual switches, like you have double lights. You could just have one light that's for nighttime that has a red bulb, and then your regular light for the morning when you're trying to shave and makeup and all that, or whatever the case maybe. But yeah, all of us, including my kids, have red lamps. So they have the big overhead light, and then at nighttime or early in the morning, they just have the red lamp. And my younger daughter still sleeps with not a night light, with a lamp on. She still likes the light, so she's sleeping with a red light on all night. So takeaways, homework, what do you want to change, experiment with, learn more about, etc. And then we'll see you on Thursday. And I'm starting to lose my voice here. So we are at time, but I'd like to give the opportunity for any questions for this last segment that may have come up for you or anything like that.
I don't think I have any questions for this law that I implement, you take away or add.
Yeah, like I said, this is a bit of a heavy learning session today. And again, there's a lot of things, a lot of techniques, strategies, tips. Find one that actually was going to resonate with you. Is it like just trying to be as best as possible, eat earlier, or at least away from like when you're going to bed? That's a great one to start. Or if not, make sure it's a lighter meal. Is it, try and get some natural sunlight in the morning to really set your circadian rhythm for the day? Like whatever, like pick one thing. And I don't need an answer right now, but I'd love to hear on Thursday, like, hey, Deepak, we talked after on Tuesday, and I was gonna try this and I did for 2 days and seems to work, or I don't know yet, or that's not for me. I'm picking something else. Whatever. Love to hear on Thursday what
I'm
comes.
gonna try and slow down my refresh rates.
Okay.
The refresh rate on my screens.
Oh.
That's what he's talking about, the blink rate, the refresh rate.
The flicker, yeah, Iris Tech. I don't know how much it costs, but that's there's probably others.
A lot of monitors will let you change it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, especially if they're newer monitors. So yeah, the good point, Craig. Probably that information, like where you really had to go and like install something, that's probably like 7-8 years advice, and a lot of newer monitors, which unfortunately I don't have, probably have that where you can probably cut it down mostly or by greatly anyway. So yeah, it depends on probably the age of your monitors for sure.
Change my lamp color to yellow.
Yeah, and incandescent if you can, because a lot of companies are now selling
Colored LEDs.
yeah, colored LEDs. It's not the same thing. It gives you that visual of that color, but that frequency of light is still the same. It's still an LED, and because of the heat wastage, or it's not environmentally friendly, they're getting rid of incandescent, so they're getting harder and harder to find. But you really need an incandescent one if
They're
possible.
tough to find.
Yeah, they're very tough. And I think in the last year, it's been a while, it's been a couple months. I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect in the last year, probably because of pressure or whatever, Amazon has actually stopped selling them. You could still find them on Amazon easily, and now it's like you can't find them. At least last time, at least in Canadian Amazon, maybe in US Amazon you can. I don't know.
No, like when we lived in California, they outlawed them.
Yeah. Which is
Because they use so much more energy.
I mean, I think what's the I don't yeah, use more energy, or they like there's a lot of heat wastage, like a lot of heat comes off of them, and they're like, oh, that's wasted heat. Like, well, I mean, you could heat your house a little bit that way, and obviously, it's not like the same as having a stove, or
In Canada, that's not a horrible thing.
Yeah, what exactly, right? But that being said, like at the moment, I'm kind of locked in because I've locked my dog out of the office, so I'm not getting a lot of airflow, that type of thing. But I got this terrible ring light with a ton of blue light on me, right? But like, there's still enough heat comes off this, like I'm sweating, right? Like if I'm all day in front of the ring light, like I don't have any airflow and I don't get a chance to go outside or whatever. And of course, it's the ambient air temperature is getting warmer as we head into summer. Like I'm sweating, so like I don't know if there's much difference from a heat point of view. There's probably some measurable, they've made it, but anyway, I digress. Anyway, I'll stop the recording here.